In terms of teaching, I had recently taken a trip to South Africa, and I had ventured into Soweto. I had walked in as a reporter and as a student, as a grad student, with my notebook and my cameras, and people told me not to go into Soweto in that way, that surely I would be mobbed. People did run right up to me, but it wasn't to grab my camera, it was actually to ask me to take photographs of them and to record their stories. That's when I started to realize that there's a whole group of people without access to electricity, without access to their own storytelling, that really want to have that. They really aspire to tell their own stories. This is really what I want to do. I want to help young folks who are marginalized to a great extent tell their own stories. And I started looking at hip-hop journalism, something that I feel like has been somewhat derided. And partly what those journalists were trying to do was tell stories about themselves that hadn't been told before. They didn't like the way that young black men were being represented, and so they felt, we're going to tell a different story, we're going to present a different image. Our research shows that young people, and especially, for example, young black men or young racialized people, are criminalized by Canadian media. My research is really about how do those young people resist those images? Because when you are criminalized by a mainstream press, it can affect the way that you think about yourselves. It can affect the way that you aspire and who you aspire to be. Young people who are marginalized in our society have a lot of aspiration. They resist the way that they're depicted. They're aware of the way that they're depicted. And so partly by sending this message and by sharing this message with my students, I want them to be aware that the people that we talk about are aware of the way that we talk about them. What I'm bringing back to the classroom is something that in some ways really affects them because it's popular culture. In particular, when it comes to hip-hop, they can really connect with that. And so they really do connect with that. And then as soon as they connect with this kind of larger story, I'm able to tell this sort of the smaller things underneath it. So I can talk about things like race in the media or gender representation, or who gets left out, who's invisible, who's visible. And by sort of bringing these kinds of things into the classroom, I can start to look at the larger picture of media and journalism. My students do end up in places where they have a lot of influence as journalists. So I feel like they're going to have a huge responsibility because media has such an impact on what we speak about in our society, how we communicate, the way that we think about each other. They are going to end up with a large responsibility and a large role in society. As their instructor, I feel that then I have a large responsibility to help them understand the power systems in play, the social systems in play, the social dynamics, so that when they walk into a newsroom, they're able to articulate what it is they feel about the society around them.